Thanks for tuning in to the Stones and Shoes YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and today we're going to be covering one of my absolute favorite arguments for the existence of the Christian God. So, before we get started, I think there needs to be some groundwork laid here. This is kind of like when that friend you have tells a story, but before they get to the kicker, before they get to the good part, they have to give the backstory and the context. And so I'll be doing a little bit of that, and hopefully it's not too long, but I will have to kind of lay the foundation here before we get into talking about the argument that I am going to be proposing here. So here's the foundation. We recognize that the observable universe originated from non-existence. It had a definitive beginning. The fundamental question arises, how can something emerge from nothing without a cause? So this leads us to conclude that there must be a first cause, an entity that initiated the existence of everything else. This probably sounds to you like the Kalam or the cosmological argument, and yes, that is right. So to adequately account for the universe's existence, this entity must possess specific qualities. So first, it must be spaceless, for space itself did not exist before the universe came into being. Second, it must be timeless, as time also began with the universe's inception. And third, it must possess immense power, the capability to create something from nothing. And finally, perhaps most importantly, it must be intelligent, implying a conscious decision or purposeful intention behind the act of creation. The idea of intentionality is going to be very important with this argument. So, when examining the necessity of a first cause, we encounter philosophical views like pantheism, which equates God with the universe and would suggest that the universe is eternal. However, this notion falls short in light of scientific consensus that the universe had a beginning, and something cannot be both created and eternal simultaneously. Consequently, we must reject the idea of a created being as God. Kind of similar to the rebuttal to the question, well, who created God? Well, yeah, that's kind of the point, is God cannot be a created being. On the other hand, atheism presents a different approach, often resulting in agnosticism regarding the mystery of the universe's origin. While acknowledging the limitations of human understanding, atheism typically refrains from providing a coherent explanation for the beginning of the universe itself, or the beginning of his existence itself, understandably so. Aside from the commonly held view that there is a God, even the multiverse theory, which I'm actually not too sure how serious that view is taken these days, but there aren't really any other popular views as to the origin of the universe, or at least not to my knowledge. Maybe there are. If I am missing something, do let me know in the comments. Now, returning to our... Oh, be quiet, Siri. 1 second, guys. Remember, I mentioned this is like a live stream. I'm gonna just... no cuts, no nothing this time. Okay, so returning to our essential attributes: spaceless, timeless, powerful, and intelligent, we find ourselves missing a critical characteristic, the aspect of personal agency. The finely tuned physical constants that allow life to flourish are indeed remarkable. They are. And these constants, such as the force of gravity, the speed of light, or the strength of fundamental forces, are impersonal and immutable. They exist as fixed parameters of reality, devoid of choice, intention, or awareness. Keep that in mind. These physical constants, they are devoid of choice, intention, or awareness. In contrast, personal consciousness is marked by qualities such as self-awareness, intentionality, and the ability to contemplate abstract concepts. And so here's the argument. This stark dichotomy highlights a fundamental issue. No purely naturalistic account can bridge the gap between these objective, impersonal laws of nature from our deeply subjective experiences of love, joy, beauty, and sorrow. These experiences hint at a reality that transcends mere physical existence, suggesting the presence of a mindful agent behind the reality we inhabit. So, this perspective leads us to a conclusion that the all-powerful creator we are positing must possess personal qualities, implying a degree of intentionality behind the act of creation. This attribute of personal agency points us towards the characteristics traditionally associated with the God of the Bible. Now, it would be untenable to make the case that an impersonal God made a creation with personal characteristics. Therefore, I don't find any arguments for an impersonal creator worthwhile to explore. But having explored this idea, I think something I would like to call everyone who watches and considers this argument is, I think we all at some point in life should come to a conclusion as to whether the God of Christianity exists because of the implications of Christianity being true. Recall that I mentioned the idea of these impersonal physical constants and forces from which we are said to originate cannot make personal choices, yet they have resulted in a personal creation. The naturalist is compelled to redefine what personal means. However, in doing so, these redefinitions could lead to a conception of personal that is essentially grounded in impersonal explanations, thereby stripping it of its personal essence. Now, to kind of take a step back here, if you're someone new to apologetics or just the idea or these ideas in general by naturalists, we're basically saying a naturalist is someone who is an atheist and believes that all of life and creation itself and the universe came about via natural causes. It's essentially implying that not only are we really just more evolved animals, but we're also just truly matter and chemicals. We don't have a soul, and so when considering what personal means, in explaining this very subjective personal experience that we as people have, the process that led up to this would not only have to be impersonal, but the whole explanation as to how this supposedly personal creation came about is grounded in impersonal explanations, thereby stripping it of its personal essence. Which would be strange to me because humans have a profound appreciation, let's say, for instance, for narrative. We often seek to situate our lives within a larger story or framework. This intrinsic desire raises a compelling question. Is there an evolutionary rationale for why we perceive beauty in narratives? Furthermore, can our subjective experiences of beauty arise from what seems to be a highly improbable and impersonal set of circumstances? So here's the issue. Regardless if naturalists are able to determine how intentionality, personability, or even consciousness have come about, it becomes a conundrum to explain how an impersonal process produced the illusion that these things do exist in the first place. You see, naturalists aim to explain phenomena, including intentionality, personability, and consciousness, through natural processes and impersonal forces. But these explanations often involve, very, complex biological, neurological, and evolutionary mechanisms. So if naturalists argue that personal experiences, such as intentionality and consciousness, are emergent properties of impersonal processes, they must also account for why these experiences feel so real and personal to individuals. The challenge is to explain how impersonal processes can produce the subjective experience of being a conscious, intentional being. So here are the conundrums they face. Subjective versus objective. Subjective experiences, the personal first-person perspective of being conscious and having intentions, is one we all have. However, how could you make sense of this, considering this, if we came about from an objective process, an impersonal third-person perspective of biological and physical processes that naturalists use to explain consciousness? If consciousness and intentionality are seen as emergent properties of impersonal processes, it raises the question of whether these experiences are real or merely illusions created by the brain. The conundrum lies in explaining how impersonal processes can create such a convincing illusion of personal experience. And with that conundrum, you're even giving the argument over to the naturalist, saying, okay, well, let's say that these personal characteristics aren't real, and there is some, of course, naturalistic explanation for why we experience things like personal experiences like love, beauty, etc. But nonetheless, even if you give them that point, how do you explain the convincing illusion that these really are personal experiences? So let's assume for a moment that you accept the existence of a personal agent, okay? This acknowledgement, however, does not automatically lead us to Christianity. Various faiths propose a God with personal attributes. What distinguishes Christianity from other belief systems, however, is a portrayal of the most personal God imaginable. Christianity presents a God so intimately connected to humanity that he chose to become one of us, revealing his character and nature through his life among us. This God serves and sacrifices himself, ultimately offering his life on the cross for us, for our salvation. In contrast, Islam describes a supposedly more composite conception of God, one who, according to their teachings, would never lower himself to engage with the creation in such an intimate manner. Their understanding of God is that he can be loving, but not inherently love, as defined in a relational sense. Judaism, while presenting a personal God as well, does not encapsulate the same level of divine intimacy and sacrificial love found in Christianity. Thus, while the acknowledgement of a personal agent is an important step, it does not singularly lead us to the unique understanding of the God found in Christianity. However, this argument alone is not meant to bridge the gap necessarily between naturalism and Christianity. However, I would still say it's one of my favorite arguments in favor of Christianity, because I think Christianity really presents the most personal idea of God imaginable, and so unbelievable that the other two major Abrahamic religions think perhaps too intimate and too personal. So I did want to mention one other aspect to this all, okay? Let's say you're still a bit skeptical about the idea of God, and that's okay. I don't, you never imagine one video or one argument to, all of a sudden change everything. But here's something I do want to cover. Let's delve into the profound implications of your existence. The odds of a particular sperm fertilizing a particular egg are indeed extremely low, with approximately 8 million possible combinations of chromosomes from each parent, resulting in about 64 trillion possible combinations for any given child. When considering the odds of each and every circumstance that led to your existence, including the formation of the universe, habitable conditions for life, and the intricate web of relationships that led to your parents meeting, the probability of life-compatible numbers coming up by chance is staggering. We do have a physicist that did put a number to the probability that you exist. His name is Lee Smolin, and he has calculated that the odds of this occurring, of you existing, are 1 in 10 to the 229th power. And that is a number so vast, it's almost incomprehensible. We're talking like millions, hundreds of millions of zeros following that 10. So this raises a fundamental question. Would you be the same person if you had a different body given the trillions of possible combinations for any given child? The Bible does teach us that we are more than just physical bodies. We have a soul created in the image of God. So this implies that our identity and essence extend beyond our physical characteristics. I think just raising that question, if you were born in a different body, would you still be the same person? Would your soul exist? I think just kind of imagining this in your mind, it kind of leads you to a place where there's a sense that perhaps there is a personhood, a soul that resides in this body, and it's not just defined by my body, right? By the matter of my body. There's something more. But most importantly, you're also presented with two options: to believe that your existence is the result of incredibly low odds, or to believe that there was a 100% chance that you would have lived in the first place, as if the outcome was never in doubt. The latter perspective suggests a purposeful, intentional creation, rather than a random chance occurrence. I'm going to share a Bible verse with you in Job chapter 12, verse 10. It says, "In his hand is the life of everything and the breath of all mankind." This verse underscores the idea that our existence is not a product of chance, but rather a deliberate act of creation. Ultimately, the choice between these two perspectives has profound implications for our understanding of the world, our place in it, and the nature of our existence. In Romans chapter 1, verse 20, we read that, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse." So let's consider this, okay? Christianity presents a God so intimately connected to humanity that he chose to become one of us, revealing his character and nature through his life among us. It presents a God so intimately connected to humanity that he chose to become one of us, revealing his character. And this person is Jesus of Nazareth. Thus, as you consider the evidence and arguments presented, reflect on the implications of belief and potential reality of such a personal God in your life and existence. If the reasoning presented here in this video holds weight, I would ask you to confront it. C.S. Lewis articulates that Christianity, if false, is of no importance, but if true, of infinite importance. The one thing it cannot be is moderately important. Considering the implications of this personal God existing, this idea, you should have it on the table. You don't have to. You don't necessarily. You may not be able right now to, pick it up and. I guess this analogy is not really working. You can leave it on the table. You can leave this idea on the table. You have to make a decision about whether to take it or whether to leave it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because the implications of this God being real are so incredible and infinitely important that you have to decide whether this is true. And there is evidence and there are arguments, and you should confront that. You should confront that. And so that is what this YouTube channel, Stones and Shoes, is all about. We're here to leave a stone in your shoe. I don't really know if there's a name for this argument. However, I simply just see it as a simple observation that you could try to explain away the universe and the personal attributes that we and subjective experiences we each have with these naturalistic explanations. However, you run into issues doing so. And I personally used to be agnostic, leaning towards more of an atheist worldview. But the the more time I've given it and the more I've opened myself up to the supernatural, it's actually become quite obvious to me that God exists. In fact, I really couldn't see it any other way. Take a moment and look around wherever you are, and instead of just making concepts of everything and seeing it in the way that you always do, just think to yourself, wow, I'm living in a creation. Look around, you're living in a creation. You're living around beautiful nature, delicious food, where you can put seeds in the ground and stuff comes out of the ground. It's wild. It's wild. And I would ask you, make a decision. Is there a personal agent that made this? And I think the arguments actually support that notion. So I hope that video is informative and interesting. My name is Noah. This is the Stones and Shoes YouTube channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.